well, evening, I guess, if you're in Europe, and well, thank you very much for staying up so late if you're in Asia. So welcome to today's webinar, and the title of today's webinar is Avoid the Biggest Mistake an Investor Can Make. We conduct these webinars every Thursday, and if you go to the front page of our website, you can always find out what our upcoming webinars are. We do record the webinars as well, and if you have a look on the front page of the website, there is a free downloads and media area, and you can see recordings of previous webinars in that area there. Now, so today we're going to talk about the biggest mistake that investors can make when investing, and this mistake applies not only to Costa Rica, it doesn't apply to land, it applies to investment across the board. And I'm hopefully going to highlight an aspect, a pitfall that many investors fall into, and hopefully help you to avoid that. Now, I know that some of you on the call this evening are saying to yourself, gosh, what's this guy talking about? I'm not an investor. I'm just considering a land purchase in Costa Rica, or I'm considering a home purchase in Costa Rica. But even still, you should consider that an investment so that you maximize the return on it. If not for yourself, as a legacy for your children, and maybe even for your children's children. Now, having said all that, I'm very proud to offer you our current project, Nature Walk, which meet all the criteria that avoids this big mistake that many investors make. It's suitable for pure investors, it's suitable for those who plan to have a home in Costa Rica, and it's suitable for those who wanted both. It's a very lucrative investment opportunity, and it's probably one of the most lucrative currently because it's in the launch stage that you're going to come across. It's one of a kind, and we are experiencing phenomenal sales, and our inventory is actually very limited. Now, at the end of the call, I do have an announcement to make in regard to a release of some new lots in Nature Walk, which we have just created, and they have just been released. We will have a short question and answer session at the end of the call, and if you look on the right hand side of your screen, there is a control panel there, and what I always encourage people to do is that if you have any questions that come up throughout the webinar, feel free just to type them into that little box there. We won't answer them then and there, but we do hope to get to them at the end of the call. Now, Tim Alexander from PRG Group, or at least one of the representatives of PRG Group, normally attend in this webinar, but unfortunately they can't attend today because they're actually all on site in Nature Walk and extremely busy. So, what are you going to get out of today's webinar? Well, we're going to talk about Costa Rica. We're going to talk about real estate in Costa Rica and real estate purchase and ownership in Costa Rica. We're going to talk a little bit about timber. We're going to talk about teak. We're going to talk about that big pitfall and how to avoid it. And, of course, we're going to talk about our current project, Nature Walk in Terrabares. Now, our office in Canada is open, and for those of you who are located in Canada, we would be delighted to see you at that office. It's in the Four Seasons Hotel complex, and Thomas Arato and Adam Sachs from Costa Rica Estates are running the office there for us and our showroom there. Now, I do know that several airlines are offering very discounted fares to Canada at the moment, so it would be a very good time to jump on a plane and head up there and see our showroom. We have a full display of Nature Walk about Nature Walk, obviously, but also we have Nature Walk jewelry, which is handmade in Costa Rica specifically for the Nature Walk brand of projects. We have Nature Walk teak paper books. Again, they're handmade and specifically made in Costa Rica for Nature Walk. And in fact, we even have some small teak trees growing in the office. Thomas and Adam have a healthy stock of Costa Rican coffee, and so if you pop up there, they would love to give you some of that coffee and welcome you there. If you can't get to Canada and prefer to travel to Costa Rica, we will be shortly opening a new office in Manuel Antonio, and we do have plans to have a teak home on or very close to that site as well, because PRG also construct teak homes. Now, we have investors who have purchased purely for themselves. We have investors who have purchased for family. We have investors who are pure investors, and we have investors who plan to have a home in Nature Walk in Costa Rica. In fact, a couple of weeks back, we had two investors from New York who traveled to Costa Rica to buy two condos. And one of our staff had been in contact with them and convinced them to go and have a look at Nature Walk whilst they were in Costa Rica. I think he actually had to twist their arms quite hard. I think we were number 10 out of, 10 things that they planned to do whilst they were in Costa Rica. We got them very attractive rates in Jaco in the Hard Rock Cafe. And I think perhaps that's the prime reason that they visited. But visit they did, and they went to Nature Walk. And in fact, they were so enamored with it that they decided they would invest in 4 lots. Now, when they returned to the States, they encountered what is called buyer's remorse. Now, buyer's remorse is where you invest in something or you buy something and it's a major expenditure, and then the next day you wake up and you say to yourself, my goodness, what have I done? Well, they encountered a little buyer's remorse, but not that way. They didn't regret that they had invested in just 4 lots. In fact, it was quite the other. They regretted that they hadn't invested in more lots. And so they turned around and invested in a further 5 lots and bought 9 in total between them. Now, these guys are experienced investors, and we're not expecting everybody on this call today to invest in 9 lots. But why did they buy so many lots when they actually went to Costa Rica to buy 2 condos? Well, the condos, they plan to be for investment purposes. They plan to rent the condos out for income and then benefit from the increase in price of the condos over time. Now, I don't know if any of you on the call this evening have investment rental property overseas, but the downsides are occupancy and continuing maintenance. If the condo is unoccupied, you earn nothing, but you still got to maintain it. And even if it's unoccupied, you still have to spend those maintenance fees. So why did these guys invest in Nature Walk? Well, because it gave them the income they wanted and the capital appreciation that they were looking for, without the hassles and headache of occupancy and the aggravation of maintenance. Already we found that most of our investors are taking action and buying sight unseen to avoid the possibility of missing out on this opportunity. But if, like these guys, you should decide that you would like to travel to Costa Rica, we would be absolutely delighted to show you the project. Just send an email and we'll put Tracy from Everything Costa Rica in contact with you. I'll just move forward there. Tracy looks after travel, tours, accommodation, and car hire. In a nutshell, everything you need whilst you travel to Costa Rica. And you can just send us an email, and of course we'll put you in contact with Tracy. Or alternatively, if you look again on the front page of our website, and you click on the services button, you will see a selection there for travel to Costa Rica, and it brings you through to this page. There are some suggestions of things you might like to do whilst you're in Costa Rica. Of course, that's not the limit of what you can do in Costa Rica. You can ask Tracy to help you with anything you would like to do while she's there. There are some Explore Costa Rica tours which are arranged by Everything Costa Rica, and these tours are for people who want to invest in Costa Rica but are not really sure what area they want to invest in. Now, these tours are based all around the Central Pacific region. They cost $500, and they include all accommodation, meals, and every day you are brought to a different area of the Central Pacific and told about the upsides and the downsides of each area, because to some people, downsides are upsides and vice versa. So it really gives you a very good insight into the Central Pacific region and helps you make a decision if Costa Rica is for you, number 1, and number 2, what area of Costa Rica might suit you. Now, first of all, a little bit of background about me. I'm an expert at investing in Costa Rica. We've been involved in ecological hybrid investments and development opportunities for the past 4 years. The companies that we work with always have a very high level of success. We're stickler for details, and we always do a very thorough due diligence before we agree to partner with any company in any project. The criteria we have for choosing a company or project to work with are that we always work with development land, which we combine with agricultural commodities. All of our projects have a green, eco-friendly, sustainable aspect to them. We always work with high-quality, reputable companies with a strong track record who we enjoy working with. And we particularly like opportunities which give the smaller investor an opportunity to invest in an investment class and an investment type which is normally only open to the very largest investors. And I'm glad to say that Nature Walk Terra Bars ticks all of these boxes for us, and there are opportunities for the smaller investor, medium investors, right through to the very largest investor. Now, a little earlier, in fact a couple of weeks back, I was looking through some paperwork from the Boston Institute of Retirement Research, and they were debunking some of the myths that are out there about retirement. And I have to tell you that the report did not make happy reading. The first myth is that people will have enough resources to meet their retirement needs when they retire. Unfortunately, the reality is that almost 45% of working age households are at risk of not meeting this simple goal. We're led to believe that younger workers will be better prepared for retirement than the baby boomers. The truth of the matter is that almost 50% of younger households are at risk. That's much more than the baby boomers. Many people believe that social security replacement rates will continue at the same level, unfortunately, which is 42% at the moment, but unfortunately the reality is that net social security replacement rates will drop to 30% by 2030, adjusting for rising normal retirement age, taxation benefits and higher Medicare premiums. Many people believe that their 401ks that they've been saving and their IRA funds that they've been saving into will provide significant retirement income, but unfortunately the typical household head approaching retirement has less than $60,000 saved in their 401k or IRA accounts, and that translates to $400 a month, which isn't much. Many people believe that if they save as much as their parents, their retirement will be secure. Unfortunately, that's absolutely not true. Current workers have to save more because of the demise of traditional pensions, rising longevity, soaring healthcare costs, and falling asset returns. The Boston Institute for Retirement Research talks about the fact that many people plan to rely on the equity in their house to finance their retirement, but the truth is that retirees still need somewhere to live, and so they can only tap into a portion of their house's value. And the Boston Center for Retirement Research estimates that just about 45% of the equity of a house is available at retirement. So, that report did not make good reading. Now, I think we've all probably discovered to our cost that many of the traditional investment opportunities that we invested in have proved very lacking. Indeed, some of those people we put our trust in have proved similarly lacking. I know I certainly discovered this to my cost, and those bank shares that I invested in Ireland, where I'm from originally, they don't look very rosy now. But the good news is that if you had access to an asset class which combines a number of asset classes together, the first of which doubles in value every 10 years, the second of which has outperformed inflation by 3.3% on average over the past 100 years, and that self-same asset, the UN estimates demand is going to increase by 60% over the next 25 years. The third asset has a built 50% increase in the next year, and that asset typically rises by 20% per annum. And the fourth asset had no value 5 years ago. The market was worth $40.4 billion in 2007 and is now worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Well, what are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about some real assets that are in your name, guaranteed by Chicago Title. And specifically what we're talking about is Nature Walk, which is an offering of land, teak forestry, and development use with ecological advantages in a fantastic location in Costa Rica. So, to begin with, let me tell you a little bit about Nature Walk, and then we're going to break apart the specific pieces of Nature Walk, and then we're going to bring it back together again. And then I'm going to talk about that mistake that people make or have made, that investors make, and how Nature Walk helps you to avoid that. So, what is Nature Walk? Well, it's a teak plantation. It's 100 hectares, which is about 220 acres in size. It has an excellent location. It's approximately 20 minutes drive from Yaco, and it overlooks the ocean. In fact, the views extend all the way from Caldera right down to Manuel Antonio. And because of its location in the hills, there's a constant cooling breeze. And you're far enough away from the hustle and bustle that really all you can hear are the birds singing, the monkeys in the trees, and the wind rustling through those teak trees. The Autoroute del Sol from San Jose to Caldera opened about 3 months ago, and this has effectively halved the driving time from San Jose to Jaco. The teak, as I mentioned, it is a teak plantation, and the teak will be ready for harvest in 7 years. Investors in Nature Walk own both the teak and the land. Now, each lot comes with permission to put one house on it, and each lot will be fully serviced with water, electricity, and road access. At harvest, the returns from the teak will more than cover the cost of the purchase of the land. Now, Nature Walk borders the Pavona Ranch project, and that is a very advantageous location because the Pavona Ranch project has a commercial aspect to it, with shops, restaurants, and other service facilities planned. Now, as I mentioned, there are teak trees growing on these lots. If you plan a home for yourself in the short term, you could harvest some of those trees right now and build pretty much right away. Well, as soon as the services are in, you could build. You could, alternately, you could harvest all of the trees right now if you wished and get some return from that and then build. You could harvest some of the trees. Alternately, you could allow the trees to mature, which is another 7 years from now when you'll maximize their value. And then after harvest of those trees, the return is the choice of what you do from there is yours. Do you want to simply build on the land yourself, have a beautiful tropical hideaway in that fantastic location? Do you simply want to sell the land on, or are you a pure investor? Or perhaps you don't want to harvest the tree at 20 years of age. Perhaps you have a longer term plan. Perhaps you need the return from the teak in 15 years or 10 years or 12 years. Well, the great news about teak trees is that they don't know about banking crises and economic downturns. They continue to grow and they become even more valuable. Now, a very important aspect of this development is that PRG Global Realty have a timber home building arm called Tropical Teak Homes. Tropical Teak Homes will build teak homes in Nature Walk, and PRG have a plan underway to establish a teak mill close by specifically to process the teak timber for these homes. As an owner in Nature Walk, this has two major advantages. It gives you a guaranteed market and lower harvesting costs, and perhaps more importantly, higher prices for your teak, because the value of milled teak is much, much higher than the value of teak logs. So anyway, let's break down the individual aspects of Nature Walk. And the first area that I'm going to speak a little bit about is Costa Rica. Now, I do know that many of you on the call this evening are very familiar with Costa Rica, but here's a brief overview, quick introduction. Where is it? Well, it's in Central America. It is the oldest democracy in Central and Southern America, and it has more teachers than policemen. It has a very high literacy rate of 97%, and this year they're going to spend more than 25% of their entire national budget on education. It has a fantastic climate, and people in Costa Rica live longer than most other places in the Western Hemisphere, with an average lifespan of 79 years of age. Costa Rica contains over 5% of the world's biodiversity. That's an incredible figure when you think about it. 1 in 20 of every living thing on this planet lives in a tiny little Central American country called Costa Rica. In fact, Costa Rica is the country that practically invented ecotourism, and it ranks really highly in a number of polls. They're now ranked third in the world in terms of environmental performance. 2 years ago, they were ranked fifth, and they're improving all the time, and they plan to be number one. That study is carried out every 2 years by Yale University. Costa Rica is ranked number one in the Happy Planet Index, and this study is carried out by the NEF Group, and it estimates how happy a nation is, how happy its people are, and a Gallup World Poll has shown that Costa Rica have the happiest population in the world, and it compares that happiness to the ecological damage that they do in pursuing that happiness. So basically, Costa Rican people are very happy and do very little damage to the environment. Costa Rica is the 7th most politically and socially stable country in the world. Now, when I say that to people, quite often they simply do not believe it. The 7th most politically and socially stable country in the world is Costa Rica, Central America. But it is. And that study was carried out last year by the Economist Intelligence Unit. Costa Rica is the most prosperous country in Latin America, and that study is carried out yearly by the Legatum Prosperity Index. Now, Costa Rica has preserved more than 25% of its surface area as natural park and forest reserve never to be developed, and it plans to be carbon neutral as a nation by 2021. More than 95% of their energy requirements come from renewable resources, and it's an amazing story how they've achieved this. More than 20 years ago, the Costa Rican government recognized that there were two areas of government which were in conflict: the Department of Energy and the Department of the Environment. The Department of Energy wanted cheap energy, and that often came at a significant cost to the environment. So 20 years ago, they took the remarkable decision and they put one minister in charge of both. As a result of that decision, they took a 50-year view on their energy requirements, and they invested hugely in hydroelectric, wind and geothermal power. At the time, other countries thought they were crazy. Oil was cheap, and these technologies were expensive. Now, 20 years later, Costa Rica produces 95% of its energy from these renewable resources: wind, water, and geothermal power. And other countries look to Costa Rica and the inspired decisions that they made 20 years ago. So Costa Rica is a small country, but they have very big goals. They plan, as I mentioned, to be carbon neutral by 2021. And they plan to achieve this through various channels. And last year, they planted 7 million trees. That's more per head of population than anywhere else in the world. But to achieve this goal of carbon neutrality, they're going to have to plant more trees and preserve more land. And that's going to add to the value of existing development land. Now, Nature Walk Costa Rica combines development land plus trees, and so that ties in beautifully with the Costa Rican government's plans. Now, Costa Rica is a very attractive tourist destination, and the tourism industry was worth over $2 billion last year to Costa Rica, and they intend to grow that further. For the first 3 months of the year, tourism was up 11.5% compared to the same 3 months of last year, and they had 65,800 more visitors. But Costa Rica is not just interested in the once-off visitor. They want people to come again and again, and preferably own a home in Costa Rica. And to do this, they've made the process of emigrating to Costa Rica very straightforward. And you and I have the same land and property ownership rights as a Costa Rican citizen, and that's enshrined in the Constitution. Already, more than 1% of the population is North American expatriates and retirees. And why are they looking to Costa Rica? Well, they're looking for a lower cost of living, safety, security, great health care, and a fantastic climate. The cost of living is about 50% of the cost of living in the USA, and health care is about 1/10 of the price. Imagine living in a beautiful climate, in a safe place, with great health care, for a fraction of your current cost of living. But Costa Rica is also looking elsewhere to generate revenue, and it's looking to high-tech industry. A combination of lucrative tax breaks, a highly educated workforce, and low labor costs has successfully attracted many, many multinationals. You can see just some of them there. So Costa Rica is very business-friendly. They have huge eco-aspirations. They're stable, safe, with excellent health care. So, let's talk a little bit more about the economy of Costa Rica. Now, was Costa Rica affected by the global downturn? Yes, it was. And they put some IMF funding in place. And they, just in case they needed to use it. And in the end of the day, they never needed to use it. But the IMF at the beginning of this year issued a very, very positive report on Costa Rica. They said that economic growth rose in the second half of 2009 and remained strong in the first quarter of 2010. Consumer and business sentiment have firmed up and financial conditions have continued to improve. The government's strategy to shield the economy from external shocks with IMF funds, which in the event were not used, help preserve confidence, maintain stability, and protect the most vulnerable groups. A supportive fiscal policy has provided a boost to recovery, and a cautious monetary policy has allowed inflation to move to low levels. And the value of exports for the first quarter of this year is up 16.8%. Here's what Reuters has to say about Costa Rica. They're expecting that the Costa Rican economy is going to grow by 4.5% this year and 5% next year. All very, very positive economic news from Costa Rica. So let's talk a little bit about land in Costa Rica. Now, Costa Rican land prices have seen spectacular increases over the past number of years, and in some areas, land and property prices went up not by hundreds, but by thousands of percent. But there are two big drivers which are certainly going to affect land prices over the next 5 to 10 years. The first of which is baby boomer retirees. Over 100 million baby boomers are going to retire over the next decade. Now, some estimates suggest that between 10 and 20% will seek to retire abroad or spend a significant amount of time abroad. What are they going to look for when they're looking abroad? Well, they're going to look for safety, good climate, quality healthcare, and a lower cost of living. And Costa Rica ticks all of those boxes. Now, Costa Rica couldn't possibly take between 10 and 20 million baby boomer retirees. It only has a population of 4 million right now. But a significant number of them will look to Costa Rica to retire because it ticks all of the right boxes for them. The second big driver for general land price increase in Costa Rica is Costa Rica's eco plans. Do you remember that I mentioned that they plan to be carbon neutral as a nation by 2021? And that 25% of the surface area is already zoned as natural park and forest reserve, never to be developed. But this aspiration to be carbon neutral means that they have to plant more trees, and to plant more trees, that means they have to preserve more land. And that's going to reduce the amount of development land available. And that's going to put upward price pressure on the price of existing development land. Well, that process has already started. And if you Google this particular issue, you will discover that about 4 weeks ago, Costa Rica announced that they had gathered together enough money to preserve a further 1% of the Costa Rican surface area. And that process is going to continue. These are just some very positive comments from New Wire Investor and the Move channel. But let's move on. Let's talk about timber. Timber has been traded for hundreds of years, thousands of years perhaps, but we certainly have the numbers for the last 100 years. And timber is the best performing asset class of the last 30 years. When you compare the S&P Global Timber and Forestry Index to all the other indices, timber is the best performing asset class. Over the past 100 years, timber has outperformed inflation by on average 3.3% per annum. And that number comes from a study by Cogent Partners called Unique by Nature, Timber Investments in a Global Economy. So timber is a solid, if not a spectacular performer. But I think we've all learned our lessons when it comes to spectacular investments. I know I certainly have. My experience has certainly been what can go up spectacularly, or what I expected to go up spectacularly can apparently come down even more spectacularly. But timber has a number of great aspects to it as an investment, the first of which is the simple fact that timber grows. The majority of the return from timber is the simple biological fact that it grows. If I can put it to you this way, if you decided that oil prices were going to rise for the next 10 years, and you went out and you bought a barrel of oil today for $100, and you decided to sell it in 10 years, well, if it's $200 in 10 years, happy days, you've made $100. If, however, it's $50 in 10 years, sad days, you've lost $50. But timber is different. It grows. It's like planting your barrel of oil, and in 10 years, when you come to sell it, it's grown into 2 barrels of oil. So now you've got 2 barrels of oil to sell, not 1, and the price has risen. So you've won twice. Once from biological growth, and secondly from price increases. In a study from Forest Investment Associates, the illustrative drivers of timberland returns, they showed that over 60% of the return from a timber investment is the purely biological fact that it grows. The second very important factor about timber as an investment is that it's not a perishable asset. With most other agricultural commodities, when it's ready to harvest, you've got to harvest it, and you've got to take the price on the day. You have no choice. Once it's ripe, you've got to harvest. But with timber, it's different. If the price doesn't suit or the timing doesn't suit, you don't have to harvest it. You can leave it in the ground, it continues to grow, the price continues to rise, the trees get bigger, and again you win twice. So if you've got a child starting college in 10 years, let the teak grow for 10 years. If you've got a child who's going to be leaving college in 15 years, and you want to give them a down payment for a house, let the teak grow for 15 years. The UN estimates that world demand for timber is going to increase by 60% over the next 25 years. And that's in simple direct relation to world population growth. The more people there are in the world, the more demand there is for timber. And within that, that timber asset class, teak is a very expensive niche commodity. Let's talk about teak. Teak is a very expensive tropical hardwood. And currently, more than 90% of the world's teak comes from jungle sources. Less than 10% of the world's teak comes from plantation sources. Just how expensive is teak? Well, here is a price list. This price list, I got it just before Christmas from a lumberyard. And it's a little difficult to see the numbers, so I picked some out. They have per board foot. Cherry wood is available for $6.85 per board foot. Mahogany, many people believe mahogany is a very expensive timber, $12.30 a board foot. Pine, very common, $4.75 a board foot. And teak, $28.75 a board foot. A very expensive tropical hardwood. Now, world opinion is moving against us harvesting our jungles, and so less and less teak is coming to the market. Remember, as I said, more than 90% of the world's teak supply currently comes from jungle sources. Less than 10% comes from plantation sources. Now, in April of 2010, Australia proposed to make the import, trade-in, or sale of jungle timber a criminal offence. Now, Australia has a population of 22 million, so you might say, wow, that's not so significant. Look at this. In May of 2010, the EU proposed an almost identical ban. Now, that ban is not in place yet, but a ban is coming or a restriction is coming, and that process is going to continue. So the logging of jungle teak is going to reduce. The demand for teak is rising, driven by world population growth and also driven by the fact that the two largest markets for teak are India and China. And as we know, both of those economies are really booming. So what have we got going on here? We've got reducing supply, we've got increasing demand, and that means that prices are only going one way when it comes to teak, and that's upwards. Here is just a very quick graph that I noticed that demand for teak for the first quarter of this year is up almost 100% in the USA. Now, normally at this time, Tim Alexander or a representative of PRG is on site to talk about the ecological commitments of Nature Walk. But unfortunately, and this is to do with the announcement that I have at the end of the webinar, everybody is on site in Nature Walk at the moment. So unfortunately, they couldn't attend today. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about the ecological commitment of Nature Walk. Now, as I mentioned, the teak plantation is over. It's slightly under, 100 hectares. I think it's actually 98 hectares in size. More than 20% is going to be left in a natural preserve not to be touched. That 20% is for the common use of all of the investors in Nature Walk. It's going to be a natural park forest reserve. Each of the lots has an ecological easement or covenant attached to them, requiring that after harvest of the teak, that 50% of the surface area of the lot must be replanted with trees. Now, you can allow the teak to regrow, or alternately, you can replant with different trees. It's your choice. But this is to preserve the beauty of the area and the ecological, sustainable nature of Nature Walk as a development. There are a number of very eco-friendly conservation and eco-friendly practices in place in Nature Walk, including a very revolutionary sewage system, which has a very low carbon footprint, requires no energy input, and actually produces clear water, which then can be used in your garden or to water your trees in Nature Walk. There is a tree planting initiative for every lot sold in Nature Walk. PRG are planting 600 new teak trees off-site. Now, that's a win-win for Nature Walk, for the environment, and for the investor. Number one, the investor gets the benefit of reducing their carbon footprint further. The environment gets the benefit of additional trees planted off-site. So there's a net gain in the number of trees planted. And the final win is, of course, that Nature Walk is PRG, are in the business of building teak homes. So effectively, they're planting a supply for the future, a sustainable supply for the future. So it's a win-win-win. As I mentioned, an investment in NatureWalk will reduce your carbon footprint. 3 lots in the launch offer, 3,000 square meter lots, effectively would eliminate the carbon footprint of a 6-person family. 1 lot will eliminate the carbon footprint of a 3-person family. And our entry-level investment, which is our $5,000 titled interest, will offset about 2 tons of carbon per annum. To put that in perspective, an average person's carbon footprint is usually about 6 tons per annum, and so it's about 1/3 of your carbon footprint. So, let's talk about a couple of the investment dynamics at play here. If you're a development land or a land banking investor, you purchase land on the basis that changes will take place which drive the land price upwards. Some of the changes might include rezoning, adjacent development, the simple passage of time. All of these things affect land prices. When the price goes up, you sell the land and you take your profit. That's a normal land banking investment. But with NatureWalk, you have the advantage of that very expensive, very valuable teak growing on your land. Say if you plan to have a home in Costa Rica and fancy that you're going to purchase some land now and build perhaps in the future, or even build in the near term. You purchase the land and it sits there. It sits there effectively earning you nothing until you build on it. And if you do build on it, the land still earns you nothing. But with NatureWalk, you have that valuable teak growing on your land. So the teak is giving you a return either whilst the land sits there or even whilst your house sits there. And as I mentioned, the great thing about teak is it doesn't know about banking crises and global downturns. It just continues to grow. And it is an international commodity in high demand. Now, land prices in good locations are going to grow strongly in Costa Rica. That's going to be driven by the twin drivers of demand from expatriates and retirees looking for cheaper living with great weather, good health care, and a safe and secure country. And Costa Rica ticks all of those boxes. The other big driver that I mentioned was that Costa Rica plans to be carbon neutral as a nation by 2021, and that requires that they're going to have to zone more land as natural park and forest reserve and plant more trees, and that process is already underway. So we've got increasing demand, reducing supply. That is driving land prices up generally. In regard to teak, the trends against illegal jungle logging is reducing the available teak to the market, and simple population growth is driving demand for teak up. So again, reducing supply, increasing demand, increasing prices. With the launch offer lots in NatureWalk, the return for the teak using very conservative pricing will more than cover the cost of the purchase of the land. And that land in a great location effectively becomes a free bet for the pure investor or a free plot of land for the home builder. NatureWalk is the ideal combination between ecological and economic location. It's close enough to the Autoroute du Sol, which has made this area much, much, much more accessible. It has halved the driving time from San Jose, the capital, to the Central Pacific area. And access is one of those vital factors affecting development land prices. You can have the most beautiful bit of land in the world, but if nobody can get to it, the price is going to be low. And this is a beautiful bit of land that you can get to. Additionally, we boarded that Pavones Ranch development, and that has the commercial facilities planned, and we're piggybacking on that effectively. That's going to further push up land prices. We're close enough to the facilities of Hackle, but far enough away to be out of sight. It's about 15 kilometers to Hackle as the crow flies, but it is a 30-minute drive. In a nutshell, it's paradise. Now let's go on to some of the specific offerings that we have now. And I also did say that we've got some news about a recent launch, and I will get to that as well. Now, we have a title share program, and this was developed in specific response to demand from smaller investors who said, you know, gosh, we really like NatureWalk. We really like this as an investment. It's got land, it's got teak, it's got Costa Rica, all of the things that we really like, but just the entry level is a little too high for us. And so what we decided to do is to create our title share program. And in this, investors can buy shares in individual lots Their shareholding is guaranteed by Chicago Title, and the lot that they buy a share in will be sold in either 3, 5, or 8 years. It's a very simple hands-off investment, and each share costs $5,000, and we've got projected target returns of between 18 and 23% per annum, depending on the term that you choose. And with each of these options, you'll receive income, a dividend of 10% for the first 3 years, and even better than that, and then, of course, at the sale of the Teak and the lot, you will receive your share of that, and a share purchase will reduce your carbon footprint by approximately 2 tons of carbon per annum. Now, unfortunately, our 5-year option is now fully subscribed. We have very limited availability in the 3 and 8-year options. Let's move on to our launch offer lots. We have very limited availability in these launch offer lots. In fact, we have just 3 lots remaining, but I will run through what the offer on these launch offer lots is. These lots are priced at 50% of the proposed retail pricing of the rest of the estate. There's a minimum investment of $50,000, and the developer will pay a 10% per annum dividend for the first 3 years. So if you invest $50,000 for the first 3 years, you will receive $5,000 per year paid into the account of your choice, and that dividend comes from teak thinnings elsewhere on the plantation, not from your own land, from teak thinnings elsewhere. Let's look at an example just to show how an investment in those launch offer lots might work. Now, this is a very flexible opportunity because you're combining 4 asset classes. You're combining land, you're combining development use, you're combining teak, and you're combining ecological advantages. Because you're combining them together, there are many, many options. But this is just one way I've laid this out. So, the 3 lots that remain are 2 Valley View lots, which are $19,500 each, and 1 Seaview lot, which is $25,000. All of these lots are contiguous; they touch one another, and so the total purchase cost is $64,000. Now, what I've assumed in the for the basis of this projection is that 1 lot is sold at year 4, and I've assumed that it's the Seaview lot that gets sold at year 4, and the remaining lots plus their teak are sold at year 8. I'm assuming that 100% of the purchase cost is borrowed at 8% over 5 years, and the capital borrowed is repaid actually from the sale of that first lot. The returns are that the developer will pay a dividend of 10% per year for the first 3 years. I've assumed land appreciation at 7.5% per annum. I think that's very conservative. Very, very conservative. These lots are very competitively priced in comparison to other lots in the area. They're about 50% of the price of other lots in the area already. So 7.5% per annum, I think is very conservative. We've assumed a milled teak value of $1,000 per cubic meter. The current value of milled teak in Costa Rica is $1,250 US dollars per cubic meter, and that same cubic meter of milled teak in the USA is $1,750 dollars per cubic meter. Now that is milled teak. That's not teak logs. That's milled teak, and that is one of the advantages of Nature Walk. There is a PRG are building a teak mill close by to mill the teak from Nature Walk. So you're going to benefit from milled teak prices, not from teak log prices. So I'm assuming $1,000 per cubic meter in 7 years. So very conservative again, because the current price is actually $1,250. How does this look when we calculate it all out? So for the first 3 years, you receive your dividend of $6,400. In year 4, you sell that Seaview lot, which has increased significantly in value, and the combination of the dividend plus the sale of the Seaview lot effectively repays all of your original capital and puts money in your pocket. And then you hold on to the other 2 lots for year 5, 6, 7, and 8, and in year 8 you harvest the teak and sell the remaining 2 lots. So, how does it look in the end? Well, the original investment of $64,000 is paid back in 4.5 years. After 8 years, the investor return grows to $214,620. That's a combination of both the teak at conservative pricing and the onward sale of the land. These are the Pavonis lots. These are phase 2 lots. Our phase 2 lots are slightly over 1,000 square meters each, which is 12,000 square feet or over a quarter of an acre. Each of these lots is to be fully serviced with road, water, electricity. And the the cost of these lots, or the pricing of these lots, is $35,000 per lot. And we do have an offer. If you invest in two of those lots is $60,000, which is a $10,000 discount. And four of those lots, if you wish to invest in four of those lots, is $100,000, which is a $20,000 discount. Actually, a $30,000 discount, even more. Apologies, I can't calculate. So one lot, $35,000. Two lots is $60,000, and four lots is $100,000. Those are Pavona's Ranch lots. Now, I did say at the start of the webinar that I did have an announcement, and the announcement is that we have just this week released, I beg your pardon, those are Pavona's lots. And let me just fill you in a little bit on those Pavona's lots. The launch offer lots are very attractive. They are priced cheaper than the Pavona's lots and come with a dividend. But the downside, if you like, is that there is a minimum of $50,000 investment, and in fact, our remaining lots are $64,000, the three remaining lots. For the Pavona's lots, as I mentioned, it's $35,000 per lot. You can have two lots for $60,000 or four lots for $100,000. Similar lots in the area are between $40,000 and $60,000. So even at $35,000, they're very competitively priced. And that's similar lots in the area without teak. So the question is, how much will the teak be worth? Well, conservative calculation, about 20, and using the same figures as I used in my previous calculation, about $23,000. So it doesn't quite cover the cost of purchase of the lot, but it makes a significant dent in it. Now, the news that I had is that we have just launched some estate lots. Now, we launched them last Friday. This was in specific demand from some larger investors. And these lots are larger. They're 5,000 square meters. Which is 1.2 acres. Each of these lots has 13-year-old teak on it. They will have full services with road, water, and electricity. Those services will be completed within the next 12 months. These lots do not come with a dividend, but they are extremely competitively priced. They're $47,500 for a 5,000 square meter lot. Now, some of our larger investors plan to just have a single home on a very large lot, which is, of course, a very nice plan. But these lots might also be suitable for subdivision. So if you fancied yourself as a developer in due course, these lots are 1.2 acres. You could certainly subdivide them to 5 or maybe even 6 lots. You could very comfortably, subdivide them to 5, perhaps even 6 lots. If you did plan to subdivide them, of course, there is a cost associated with that. You would have to do the necessary planning and applications. You would have to put in the necessary additional roads and services to those lots, but the upside benefit could be huge. Now, we launched those 7 lots last Friday. This was in response to specific demand from a couple of larger investors, and 3 of those lots are already reserved. So we have 4 of those lots remaining. The view from those lots is absolutely beautiful. It is a valley view. I thought I had a valley view picture there, but unfortunately it seems to have disappeared from my from my presentation. My apologies for that, but I will send everybody who attended this evening an email with some detail, further detail on those estate lots. Okay, so let's talk a little bit further just about Nature Walk. And we can talk, of course, about the big mistake that most investors make. What is it? I did promise I would address that at the very start. Well, the big mistake that most investors make is that they don't consider their exit. And what they do is that they get involved in investments where they have only one way out. The majority of investments work that way. It goes up in value, you sell, you make a profit. It goes down in value, you sell, you make a loss. But there's only one way out. Nature Walk is very, very different. It combines 4 significant asset classes together. You have lots and lots and lots of things you can do with this as an investment. If you're a pure investor, there you might, as I laid out there, buy a number of lots, sell one at some stage to recoup your capital, keep the others as a free bet. Perhaps you then might harvest the teak and sell the land. Perhaps you might structure it to purchase a number of lots, sell one after, say, 3 or 4 years to recoup some or all of your capital, and then in year 8 you might sell the teak and one of the other lots, and then you might use the return from the sale of the second lot plus all of the teak to finance the home build on the remaining lot. There are all sorts of combinations. Remember that teak is not a perishable asset. It doesn't have to be harvested in 7 years. It can be harvested in 10, 20, 30 years. There are all sorts of options there. And that's what makes Nature Walk a very, very attractive opportunity. It's very, very, very flexible. So, if you're interested in those estate lots, how can you get involved? Or if you're interested in those launch offer lots, we have 3 of the launch offer lots available. Here's the investment process. It's a 15% reservation deposit, and that 15% reservation deposit is fully refundable, less a $250 contract fee should you decide not to proceed. Once the lots are reserved, we then issue the purchase agreement. The purchase agreement is signed and returned within 15 days with another 15%. And nothing further is payable until title is transferred. And title on these lots will be transferred on the 15th. The expected date for title transfer on these lots, all of the ones I've mentioned, not the Pavonis lots, but the launch offer lots and the estate lots, is the 15th of March of this year. So on the 15th of March of this year, the balance is due. There is developer finance available on all of these lots. We have developer finance available at 50% of the investment cost over 3 years at 8% interest rate. So there is developer finance available. So if you are interested in these lots, either in the launch offer lots or alternately in the estate lots, as you can see, we have very limited availability in both of those. Please send an email to info@costaricainvest.ie, and please just indicate which lots that you're interested in. We will deal with inquiries on a first-come, first-served basis. Of course, there's no, if you send in an inquiry and register you're interested, it's not an obligation, but it does get you into the listing. So, now this opportunity, it may be suitable for you. It might suit your investment needs. It might suit your requirements to have a home in Costa Rica, or it may not be for you. But it could be for a friend, a neighbor, or a colleague, and they'd be so grateful if you told them about this opportunity. So also, please feel free to pass this information on to your neighbors and colleagues. Now, we do have some time, although it is quite limited. I do think I've spoken a little too much and run over, and my apologies for that. So we do have a little bit of time to take a couple of questions, and I do think we got some questions already in. Yes, we do. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in now. I get through as many as I can, as quickly as possible. Don't want to delay people too much. So, okay, the first question that we have is how much teak will be produced? Okay. There are very specific calculations in regard to producing teak. We know teak returns or teak plantation returns over the past number of decades. And in Costa Rica, typically at 20 years of age, a teak plantation will produce between 240 and 400 cubic meters per hectare. That's 240 and 400 per hectare. If somebody tells you that they've got a teak plantation going to produce more than 400 cubic meters per hectare, they're pulling your leg. Now, in Nature Walk, our estimate is that we are going to produce 280 cubic meters per hectare. So we always tend to err on the side of being conservative. We would rather give you a nice surprise in 7 years' time when in fact perhaps we hit 290 or 300 cubic meters per hectare. But right now we're projecting 280 cubic meters per hectare. Okay, the next question, which is in at the same time actually as this question, in the same question, is what are the current prices of teak? Okay, there are things to be aware of when you're pricing teak. There are very large differences between the prices of teak logs or unmilled teak and the price of milled teak. The price of milled teak, what they call rough sawn milled teak, which has been kiln dried and it's rough sawn and milled in Costa Rica at the moment, is $1,250 per cubic meter. The price of the same cubic meter of rough sawn milled teak in the USA is about $1,750 per cubic meter. Now, as I mentioned, teak logs are priced considerably lower, and this is the nature of agriculture. The processing adds value to the agricultural commodity. Unfortunately, it is the nature of agriculture that the farmer actually gets the lowest price. The miller or the people who add the value in the chain, they benefit significantly, and it's the same in teak. And teak logs in Costa Rica, again 20-year-old teak logs per cubic meter, depending on quality, vary from about $350 to $500 per cubic meter. So you can see there's a significant jump in value from $500 to $1,250 once the teak has been milled. Now, one other aspect to highlight about that is that there is loss of teak in the milling process. Well, by definition, we're turning round logs into square planks, and of course those offcuts are lost. Now, they're not valueless though. For our calculations, we valued the offcuts at 0, but they're not valueless, and you will benefit from those. Those offcuts are typically used in furniture manufacture, artisan, sort of knick-knack manufacture, and they have a value. And you, as an investor in NatureWalk, you will also benefit from those. But like I say, for the purposes of our calculation, we have priced the offcuts at 0. Priced the offcuts at 0. Okay. The next question that I've got in is, why do we believe land prices in this area will rise in value? Well, gosh, that is a great question, because when it comes to investing in land, the answer always is location, location, location. I spoke about the very big drivers that are going to drive land prices generally in Costa Rica. The increasing demand from retiring expatriates and baby boomers, and the decreasing supply because of the simple fact that they are zoning more land as natural park and forest reserve and planting more trees. So that's a general driver. But when it comes to the specifics of which areas are going to benefit most, it is location, location, location. NatureWalk Turribarres is, I think I mentioned, is the ideal combination between an economic location and an ecological location. It is close enough to the existing tourist developed area of Jaco to benefit from all those facilities, about a 30-minute drive. But it's far enough away to be completely out of the hustle and bustle. It's in the hills. It's got a fantastic location, great views, looking all the way from Manuel Antonio all the way north to Caldera. So that's one aspect, close to Jaco. Second aspect that's going to drive land price growth in this area is the opening of the Autoroute del Sol. Opened at the start of this year, opened in March of this year. And that Autoroute del Sol is a motorway that has effectively halved the driving time from San Jose, the capital, or where the international airport is, to the Central Pacific region. So the Central Pacific region has just become vastly more accessible than it was. It has effectively halved the driving time. And so it has halved the driving time to NatureWalk. So there is a second factor. Third factor that's going to drive land price growth. We border that Pavones Ranch development. Development and activity breeds development and activity. And the Pavones Ranch development has a commercial aspect to it. They plan to have some shops and restaurants and other service facilities there. I believe there's a small little medical center there too. And there is a tremendous advantage to that. Now, that's not anything to do with us, but we are piggybacking or benefiting from that. Whenever you invest in land, really what you're trying to do is get in the way of other development, to benefit from things that are happening around that benefit the land that you own. And that's what Nature Walk is. It's benefiting from the Autoroute del Sol. It's benefiting from the location close to Jaco. It's benefiting from the Pavones Ranch development. And it's benefiting from its own beautiful location. Okay. Okay, we do have some other questions in. The next question that we've got is, will each lot be serviced? Yes, each lot will be serviced with water, electricity, road access. The services are expected to be put in or completed within the next 12 months. Oh, and there will also be telephone lines put into each lot as well. So water, electricity, road access. Water and electricity and telephone line will be brought to the border of each lot, and then it'll be down to the individual owner. Should they decide to build on the lot themselves, they will have to bring the services to their individual home. Okay, I do think we've run over on our time, so I'm going to cut the questions there. We will respond to, we do have some other questions, and we will get back to those questions as well. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. I do hope you got value out of it. I do hope I successfully conveyed the advantages of an investment in Nature Walk, whether you plan to have a home there yourself, whether you're a pure investor, or whether you plan to do both. So if you are interested in our launch offer lots and our remaining launch offer lots, please send an email to info@costaricainvest.ie. If you have an interest in those estate lots, which are much larger, send that same email to info@costaricainvest.ie. And of course, we've got our beautiful Pavones Ranch lots. As I mentioned, there will always be more land, but more land will not be this land. So if you are seriously interested in investment in a beautiful location in Costa Rica, this may be the investment for you, or it may not be. And if it's not suitable for your needs, perhaps it's suitable for a friend or a neighbor or a colleague, and they'd be so grateful if you told them about it. So please feel free to pass the details to them too. So thank you very much for attending, everybody, and have a great day.